Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Masked Swingers. This episode, we have a return guest today, one of our few return guests that we had. And what we're excited about is not only does he have the expertise from throwing over 100 play parties in his lifetime, he has the expertise from living this life personally. And when we brought him back on, we didn't want to just hear about what it's like to throw a play party, but what is it like to live this life and all the nuances and secrets that he has figured out over time. So Michael, hey.
Michael with the play.
So, Michael from the play.
The famous Michael.
Thanks for hopping back on with us, bro.
Thank you for having me.
And
one of my favorites.
And I want to be honest, like when we've always talked about doing the podcast, you're like, do not do it on a week where I have a party to throw. And yet here you are on a Monday and you have a party this Saturday.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, so he heard that feedback. He threw it away.
Cool.
And then here we are.
Thanks for making that exception. So our first question is just what is going through the mind state or the emotional state of Michael today?
You know, the party's on Saturday. This is our biggest party ever. You know, I think the biggest party we did prior to this was like 140 people in total. We're at 200.
Oh, wow.
We have the most amount of performers. We've got, you know, feeding everyone. We've got some really cool sponsorships at this one. There's going to be a magazine doing a story on us. We've got like the top porn star in the game coming. We've got other journalists. It's just a lot of very important people at this one. And this is the one we wanted to make it. And also I'll be giving a naked speech at the beginning. So there's like that part of it
that
too.
That part's the least nerve-wracking part of it though, I'm sure.
You think that. You know? You would think that, but it's just like, you know, the biggest fear. It's like, imagine everybody naked or you be naked. So, you know, I'm just the reason I do it, I can't ask people to come to a space and be vulnerable without being vulnerable myself. So here is me taking action and vulnerability, hoping that it may inspire others to be a little bit more vulnerable. So
I think what I also, and you get this too, like between the Candid app or Discord channels and the play, building community is always challenging. And I think that unless you've done it and tried to build a network, you don't really get all the nuances of it. Like, it's not the technology and the stuff that is hard. It's everything else. I'm curious for you when you're coming in and you're like, there's a lot going on. Can you give people somewhat of an insight into what some of the challenges are?
We curate our guest list for every single one. So just because you want a ticket, there's not like a ticket link. You say, hey, I'd like to come. And then we decide based off your profile if this is a right fit. This party is the right fit for you. So some of the things that, you know, I don't think people realize are we also look at relationships. Right? Like they just broke up. So they broke up a month ago. Does it make sense to have both of them at this party? Right? So who should we have at this party? And then also, how do we communicate that to them in a respectful manner and taking the time for the healing of hearing that message of, hey, you can come, they can't. And then what we do is like the next party, they can come and you can't. And then the party after that, it's out of our hands. Right? If it's not figured out by then, it's not our issue. But we do want to be gentle with people when it comes to, you know, their relationships. And our goal is to protect the vibe at all costs. So if we feel that like, oh man, they say they're cool, but they could potentially blow up, or not only that, just create an awkward vibe. Maybe they don't say anything to each other, but it's like they're trying to hook up with other people in front of the other person. Like we don't need that. So
yeah. And that's like, I mean, that could happen at any party or a birthday. Even if you're not in the non-monogamy space, it can get awkward, right? It's like they broke up. They're still both at the wedding and the reception. Oh, and one of them's bringing a +1 to the wedding. Like that stuff happens. I know some people will be like, I'm just going to invite both of them and let them figure it out. But that is you're shaking your head. Is that the less responsible way to handle something like that?
This is the difference between a play party and a community, right? The community, we're trying to take care of each other, right? A play party, like sell as many tickets as you can. Just come to the party, right? With the community, we want to make sure that we're protecting and honoring the relationship status, the healing people may be going through. So it takes a little bit more work, but it's worth it. And this is why we continue to, you know, sell out of all of our parties, and we create these magical experiences because we're taking the time to add humanity into this very human experience.
Yeah. Have you had that on the Discord channel that you're running where like a breakup happens and someone wants the other person kind of kicked out?
Yeah, no, that's happened before, especially because I host a couple of different discords, right? Where we have one that is kind of like a little bit more poly focused. And then we have one that is just for swingers, strictly swingers that are couples. So we have one that's called like SoCal Couples Club, and you have to be a couple. We don't, not necessarily have to be a couple, but no single men are allowed in this particular Discord server. And that was voted upon the community that we had. So there have been breakups where neither of the partners want to inform me or the other moderator because they don't want their ex to get kicked out or cause drama or be like excommunicated from our group, because we don't want to do that either, because that's not fair, you know. But that has happened, and we will have to nicely ask the gentleman to leave the group. And when and if that does happen, we have other groups that you can join. And then so you're still included in the group, just not this one.
But it's that wild, like that quick. As soon as you're
the second we
single.
Find out. And I have, in my particular group, I do allow solo guys, but they only get access to certain channels. They don't get access to like the dirty pictures channel and things like that. So I change their access if I find out that they're no longer in a couple.
Yeah, the distrust for single guys is really high.
As it should be, honestly. That's just me. I have had a lot of, and we fight about this all the time. We fight about this all the time. Just from my personal experience, I have found that single guys in this space, especially single guys in this space that didn't come into this space partnered, and they come into this space as a single guy, you make a certain amount of mistakes and then you just kind of have to cut them out, right?
Oh, I know.
Oh, you know.
I talk about this as well to, people in our community, because we get emails like, hey, do you guys allow single guys? And we do. But the reason we do is because of our vetting process, right? So they have to submit this application. Then, okay, based off the application, do they get an interview? Then in the interview, we have all the right questions to figure out, okay, is this a right fit? Because there's some really awesome divine masculine out there that really wants to support this community and show up and show that, hey, they can be here single. And I think what we found is people in our community want a party that has singles there, right? Like there's couples that are like, hey, we're not just looking for another couple. They're looking for an extra person to add. And sometimes that's a male and sometimes that's a female. So having that option is super important. And I think also when you start trusting these single men, they also help protect the space, right? They're going to find out, hey, you know what? Like this other guy, I see how he's moving. This isn't right, and also the women do the same thing with other single women, right? Mm-hmm. Single guys, I wouldn't say single guys are more of an issue than other single women. Now, maybe they're showing up and, breaking a rule in a different manner, but I've also seen toxic, women in the space as well. So it's a delicate balance. And that's what makes the job so hard, is that there's this super delicate
It's
balance.
hard. And then we're always hearing about stuff like secondhand. It's rarely from the source. So then I'm like, all right, well, I'll call him and be like, hey, have you had an issue with this person? And sometimes it's a yes and it's easy. Most of the times it's a no. And then he's like, well, let me know what you find out. Cause he wants to keep his community safe too. So if I find something out, we want to like at least have each other's back on that. So someone doesn't go to a party if it is obviously clear.
And the context is huge, right? Like, did that person have a nasty breakup, right? Or were they friends with a person that had a nasty breakup with that person? So they already have a bad taste in their mouth. So now they're not being objective in their judgment. So there's just a lot of context to these situations where we want to make sure we do the due diligence and, try to find, maybe it's not this party, maybe it's the workshop they attend, or maybe it's the day party or the social. But there's been plenty of times where the single guy we were kind of sketchy about, on the fence about, it's like, you know what? Let's invite him to the social.
Yeah.
Let's feel him out in real life.
Yeah.
Okay. They did a great job. Cool. Come to the party. Or rumor is true.
If he's weird at the bowling alley, he might be weird at the party. For sure. All right. So, on the subject of breakups though, you're married. How long have you been married for?
It will be 7 years at the end of this month.
Congratulations.
Yes,
Happy anniversary.
Thank you very much.
All right. So 7 years. And then you also had a girlfriend.
Yes, I had a girlfriend. We were officially boyfriend and girlfriend for 2 years. We had been dating for 3 years. So been dating a year prior. So a solid 3-year relationship.
And she was involved also, like she would be at a lot of events, right? And so what has that, like disentanglement look like for you? Like, because you're now you're talking to other people about their own breakups and inviting one or the other. What's your breakup been like?
Oh man, at the beginning it was tough. I think anybody getting out of a 3-year relationship, it's tough, regardless of lifestyle or not, right? So for me, it was super tough because I have to put my emotions to the side. I have to take the high ground. I have to lead by example. Although we were broken up, she still attended parties with the new partner, regardless of where I was in the healing process. And I did encourage them to come because I have to set an example for my community and my team to be like, when a breakup happens, that's okay. Watch how we can still have a phenomenal time. And there was no drama, right? And when they see that, then I'm only going to hold you to the standard that I hold myself.
Right.
I know so-and-so just had a breakup and they're both going to be there. So you guys show me how it's not, you're telling me it's not a big deal. You both can attend. So cool. Show me.
But what did it really, man, like, what did it really feel like? That's what
we want to hear.
Man, dude, I mean, granted, I'm married, but I've been with my wife for less time than you're with your ex. And I remember we talked about it and I was like, dude, how are you doing? Because if I broke up with my wife, I definitely couldn't go to a play party this weekend, let alone throw one and have her there with someone else.
My feelings were hurt. My heart was bleeding. Compersion is what this whole community is about, right? If I truly love someone unconditionally, and we're practicing compersion, it means that although I am no longer being the one that provides her with happiness or bringing her pleasure, the fact that she is experiencing pleasure from someone else, I should be happy. So that is the motto and that I was going by the whole time. I mean, anytime I'd be mad, I was like, man, she is happy. And like seeing her happy, like that's all I wanted when I was in the relationship. So while I'm out of the relationship, why should that change? Even though my emotions and my ego, and I want to be the first one on record to say it was not smooth. There were times where we had blow ups on each other and he said, she said, and still having to work with each other. So I definitely made some big mistakes and I still regret some of the decisions and the things that I said. But the one thing that I was really hell bent on is still making sure that she felt welcomed into the community. But yeah,
that's really admirable, because I think you mentioned like ego. And I think that it's big of you to feel that compersion for her. That's some true poly shit. Right. And you said you've been with your wife for 7 years. Have y'all been poly throughout that entire time?
We've been ethically non-monogamous through that time. So when we had a girlfriend, that's when we became in a hierarchical polyamorous relationship, right? To where my wife is number one and my girlfriend is not number one. I hate calling someone like number two. It's like so degrading. And I always try to find another framing of it, but it's just not that. My wife has priority for certain things, but having the conversation with all three of them, right? That's the kicker, where we all coming together around the table. Okay, what are your desires, right? How often do you want to hang out a week, a month? That'll make you feel honored and respected in this relationship. What are some of the boundaries that my wife has? What are some of the boundaries that my girlfriend has? And what are some of my boundaries? Those conversations were super transformative and informative. And I think it helped us stay together for 3 years, because however you slice it, especially in the non-monogamous world, a 3-year relationship is still pretty solid.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
But during that time, you have to respect that my girlfriend may want to be somebody else's number one. Right. So when that did happen and she found somebody for that, at first I was like, I introduced them to each other. I was the one saying, hey, you guys should go out on a date. I think you guys, like my whole thing is pairing people up, curating a right crowd that's going to like each other. So I curated that experience, was like, oh, so you guys really liked each other. Dope.
But man, I mean, I'm just like, you are competitive, bro. Like I don't know if you know this, but someone did a birthday in our crew and it was at
Squid Games.
It was a Squid Game. It was a Squid Game live experience. And so we went on a party bus with this lifestyle crew.
Are you sure you want to talk about this? Because I don't feel like you've gotten over this. And I feel like there's a lot of trauma there. But
there's no trauma
dump.
There's just, we went and there's like 50 people there. When it came down to it, the last 2 people standing.
That's right. Mano y mano.
Right here.
And we can stop there. We don't have to talk about the rest of it.
No,
we're going to go. He got knocked out. Then he got back. This is true. Look at him. He didn't want to talk about it.
I got knocked out. That was part of the game.
Wait.
Right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
This was like this. You had to like have an egg on a spoon. Right. And then you would have to protect your egg while also knocking other people's out. Right. So it got down to like the final 5 and I got knocked out in the final 5. Right. But because of the points I had earned at other games, they were like, okay, here's now the final 3. So I had enough point winning the other games, okay, that they were like, okay, it wasn't like a guy was like, oh, well, we want him back in. It was just like per the points, I got put back in the top 3. Now, what happened?
It was like a Fast and Furious movie. Like, I thought that person died. Then they got resurrected 3 movies later. So he came back and ended up being just the 2 of us. And he did win.
Oh,
he
won.
beat me.
I mean, look, I think it was a tie for Jesus, but if they had to decide a winner, yes, I did win.
He beat me. The point is, though, I know how competitive you are because I know how competitive I am, right? So you got into this relationship. And in your mind, it sounds like at some point she wants to be someone's number one. That thing's going to end. Did it flare up the competitor in you when she found that person and then it ended?
I grew up like playing all the sports and all that stuff. So I am competitive, but I think over time I've had to, know when to be competitive and when to like not be competitive. In this space, when you're competitive, it really brings out the worst. It really brings out your ego. And I think that's one of the things I'm constantly checking is my ego. We all have egos and done the ayahuasca and all the different, plant medicines out there to quote unquote have the ego death. But what I realize is like, why are we trying to kill our ego? You need your ego for certain things. I'm about to go up there and give a naked speech in front of 200 of my peers. My ego will be driving, for sure. Right? Like I need it to get up there. However, I need to know, I think having an awareness of when your ego is taking the wheel, that's the level of consciousness that you need to be at. Knowing what emotion is driving and why, and should that be the emotion that's driving your decision or your emotions at the moment. So taking steps back, like, man, fuck, my heart is broken, but this woman who I care about is happy. So do you want to continue to be an asshole and say snide comments and shit like that? Or do you just want to let it happen? And I'm still working on that relationship. I saw her last weekend and I thought we had a great conversation. It was like a great conversation. I had thrown a few snide comments in there.
Oh, my God.
I mean, the thing is, like, if you know me, like, I like to joke around. I'm going to poke, like, I just like to poke, like, see, what gets a little bit of a rise. And that's just like my personality. I'm working on that. I'm working on that. But it's just like, she goes and visits him. It's like, oh, I'm sure you had, a great time. So they're like just throwing little shit in there, and I had to, I sent a text today, just like apologizing, being like, look, I was acting back as if we were friends. Right. And with my friends, I'm going to poke, I'm going to, we do this all the time. Right. But I had to take a step back and realize like where we are at in our relationship, you shouldn't be poking, right? Just be happy be cordial, keep it moving. Right. We're not at that level yet. Maybe one day we can get there or maybe we don't get there. Literally before I got here, sent the apology. Like I just want to see you guys both happy. It's hard to do, but you do it. And you learn and you live through it. And then it becomes an example that you can use in the future.
Absolutely. Is this the first and only girlfriend that you've had while married?
No. I've had...
He's like, look at me. Are you kidding?
He's like, what are you saying?
That was a little quick. That was a little quick on the draw there. No, it's not.
Okay.
No, I've had maybe 2 or 3 others.
Has your wife had
Three others.
boyfriends?
I am not at liberty to say.
Respectable, but also, where is she? Let's get her on the phone.
Yeah, right.
Let's get her on the horn.
We both have had our relationships.
Uh-huh.
She's definitely had, I don't want to put titles on her relationships that she had with others. It's not for me to tell her business about her past situations.
Situationships.
Right.
We've heard that a lot.
But
We
I
have
will
heard
say-
that a lot today, actually.
Has she had interactions with guys one-on-one? Have they've gone on dates? Like, is dating going on dates, right? So she's been on dates with, certain guys, and, those guys were super cool. Whenever she starts seeing someone, I'm like, hey, let's go get a beer.
Oh, that's cool. So are you, that was my follow-up question is, do you spend time with people that she dates? Like, do you like to establish a relationship with those people, and vice versa? Does your wife like to have this type of friendship with your partners?
Yeah, my wife is best friends with all of my past girlfriends.
Yeah.
Really? That's really cute.
Before, during, and after.
Did they team up on you?
You say, a lot of people are just like, oh, say they want a girlfriend, stuff like, okay, now I've got two women who know me very well teaming up, coming at me, where it's like, there is no rebuttal. You're just going to sit here and take this. There's a gift and a curse. There's yin and yang and everything, right? So, and that I tell people as well, like when it's a threesome, right? Like you're about to have this threesome, like, oh my God, I'm about to have a threesome. Like, you understand you're signing up to pleasure two women. Are you good at pleasuring one? Right? You're doing that accurately to where you think you can have another. Okay. So it's be careful what you wish for. I've been fortunate to have relationships with some really beautiful individuals who were patient with me, who were understanding, and also who checked me, and checked me when it was right. And I also provided feedback as well. And we bump heads. I think the cool part is when there is a third person that, the two people who could be arguing could be like, okay, well, what is your point of view?
Yeah.
Right? Like, so now it's a little objective. So there is like that cool benefit of it.
Yeah. I would love that.
I know you would.
Most
because
people pay for that.
I think Brian's poly. I don't think he wants to admit it to himself. With what you know of Brian, I know I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you think of that assessment?
Poly is such a difficult thing to do. My definition of it is showing the same level of love to each person, right? Constantly.
So
right?
are you non-hierarchical now?
Now I'm just ethically non-monogamous.
Okay.
Right. So the non-monogamy is like, hey, we're hooking up. This is great. Getting to know each other a little bit. I'm not asking like, how's your family? Right. Like we're not, it's just a deeper level of connection. And I think time is the most valuable thing that you can give to anyone. Right. So how much time am I giving this one person over and over again? So when it became with my girlfriend, when we were dating, it's like, well, we just keep seeing each other. Like you're getting a lot of my times. We need to put a title on this because when we go into other spaces, I need people to be checking in with me about certain things when it comes to you, because we've invested a lot of time and you're not just a hookup for me. And I may get emotional based off how you interact with that person. And they should also know that like there needs to be some check-ins with me as well, because this is a person I've spent a lot of time with and I care about, and I am building a relationship with, not just a sexual relationship.
Do you or your wife experience jealousy?
Anybody in this space that says they don't get jealous, it's a big red flag.
That's so interesting.
I know.
It's a big red flag.
But not all the jealousy is like emotional and unhealthy.
No, jealousy is healthy. Like,
yeah.
How lucky are we just in this existence to be able to experience the emotion of jealousy and ego and anger and regret and the smells? Like all of this is so amazing to experience. Why to say I don't experience that? Like you do. Now, maybe you don't show it as others may show their jealousy, but there's jealousy there and that's okay. Breathe through it. How can you, one of the things I like is, it's reclamation sex. So after you hook up with somebody else, right, new, then you and your partner should have reclamation sex after, right? Reclaiming your territory.
Yes.
So
do you
hot.
do that?
I did in the beginning of, because we've only been in the lifestyle, my husband and I, for about 3 years.
Okay.
In the beginning, we would reclaim each other after dates. And now I mean, maybe every now and then. Before it was kind of a requirement and something that we needed to do to kind of feel connected again. Yeah. And now I think because we've had a little bit more lifestyle experience and are more confident in ourselves and our relationship, we don't require it, although it's still nice here and there.
Man, we don't require, but we can't not do it.
Yeah.
We just like, even if we go to a party, like let's say we leave your party at like 3 a.m, we're up till 6
or 1 a.m. But whatever. I'm not taking time. Keep going.
Is Brian leaving too early?
I do have a habit of leaving the play early.
It's like it just keeps getting better,
one time I left at 3 a.m. though. You got to give me that.
Yep.
I did.
Yep.
Sometimes my wife had too much to drink that one time.
We're not going to talk about that.
Okay. But we go home and then like it's on, like no matter what. So I do think that's important. But sometimes the jealousy is like, oh, that person did something with my wife that I don't know how to do or that I haven't done before. So like in that moment, I'm a little jealous because I don't finger that way, or there's just something subtle.
Yeah, no, I've had someone make my partner squirt before I ever did. And I was like, whoa.
Bingo.
I am wildly jealous. However, that person paused, knew that was going to happen. Ryan was like, let me show you. I was like, ooh,
claps.
All right, let's put that jealousy aside and start getting this notepad out, And so that person showed me. And then when I did it with my partner, because I'm not going to say who, but when I did it with my partner, it became way more than what happened with that person. Because now we have this, it's the physical, emotional, spiritual connection, and it gets a lot deeper. So once I show you the technique, it's still like we are also in love. So that's going to provide a little bit more of a release and a little bit more vulnerability. So
for sure. All right. Here's something I want to own up to the jealousy thing here. Okay. All right. So something I'm jealous about, and you've handled this. You have had the conversation with your pops. You've like come out to your father and you've let him know.
I've come out to my whole family.
Your whole family. And they know that like, this is your lifestyle. This is your business. This is like one of my worst fears. Right.
Yeah.
So, and I know it's coming, but I remember I was in the car with you and we were in a group and you opened up about this. What gave you the courage to do that? And how has it evolved since you opened up?
I've been doing this again for 6 years. Right. So the play is becoming wildly successful. This is something like it has a life of its own now. Right. And I'm now going on a bunch of podcasts, right? For the first like 4-5 years, I probably did 2 podcasts. I was like, we don't need to talk about it. I'll just do it. Right. Like I'll just do the thing. And this year, my PR people are like, you got to get out there and talk. You've got this wealth of knowledge and people want to know about this. I'm like, okay, cool. So now I started off on some smaller podcasts, but then they got bigger and bigger and bigger. And now I'm on like some of the largest sex positive podcast. I mean, arguably the world, because America, and like, I don't know how, where else. In America, let's not do that. Do the American thing. But, so it got to the point where they're going to find out. And the last way I want them to find out is one of their friends sending them a podcast episode and being like, is this your boy? Like, did you know about this? So once I had like a few really big podcasts coming up, I was like, all right, I got to go fly out to go see, my dad and my stepmom, and I got to break the news. And, my wife was like, well, I'm going to stay home. You can break the news. Like, fair enough. So yeah, I took them to breakfast and was like, okay. I know I've been like clouding what I actually do out here in LA, but this is what I do. And I outlined it to him. And I put a bunch of points down of like, what's the best sequence of me giving out information, right? There was also a point where I was like, at the end of the day, there's my business and there's my sex life, right? So I'm here to tell you about my business. Now, if you want to talk about my sex life, we can exchange stories. But I don't know if you want to tell me what you and my stepmom are doing, right? Like, I don't think you want to get into that, right? So it's more of like, here's the business and like, here are the numbers behind it. Here's how we're doing it. Here's how we're trying to be responsible doing it. Here's all the steps that we've taken to make sure that this is legitimate. And here's how we're protected. the lawyers, the paperwork that we have. Like, this is a legitimate business. Here's the SOPs. I spoke in a language that I think he could understand. And I also made room for a bunch of questions. It wasn't like I sent in the podcast and was like, hit me up with questions. Like, no, we're going to breakfast, like as much time as you guys need. And I was there for a couple of days. So I told him at the beginning, so like, you guys need a time to digest.
Right.
Maybe there's another time where you guys want to ask me questions individually, and creating space for that. So it was huge.
How did they take it?
They took it well. At the end of the day, the reason I told them now is because it's a successful business. Like, whether you like it or not, right? Like, it's doing its thing, right? And not only that, it brings me so much happiness. I fucking love this. Mm-hmm. Like, I love doing this. And they can see as I'm telling them how passionate I am about it. And that was one of the things, was like, well, clearly, like, you love this thing. So, and you can take care. You're not hitting us up being like, hey, I need money, blah,
right,
blah, blah.
Right,
So like,
right.
What can you say? Right? Whether you approve or disapprove, it just doesn't involve you. So a big moment for me, though, was this past, I was just in Costa Rica for 3 weeks, and I just did a huge podcast. It was the biggest one I've ever done. This person has like a bunch, over 1 million, followers on different blah, blah, blah. I had sent, my whole family this podcast, right? But I had put it in a text message with my dad and my stepmom, and I was like, check out this episode. I'm super proud of how I showed up on this, and it was super professional, and, please check it out. This is the first podcast that they've ever seen me do. And like, right away, my dad hits me up and it's like, do not send this to me and your stepmom. If you want to do your thing and run your business, do that. But you do not have to, this isn't stuff that we are comfortable with.
Yep.
And they didn't say those words, but it was just like, hey, love what you're doing, but just keep it over there.
They set a boundary.
That's a boundary.
Exactly. And then I was like, fuck, did I cross a boundary? Like, you guys know I'm big on boundaries. So I'm like, damn, I didn't even think, like, in this space, how boundaries, when it comes to information or what people want to know about sex positivity, there's a lot of that there, especially like they live in the South, right? So they could just be like, hey, I don't want to know about your hippy dippy lifestyle. Right? So like 45 minutes later, I get a text. And when your dad says, call me now.
Oh, yeah. Fuck.
Oh, yeah.
My heart dropped just hearing it.
It's almost never good news. Like,
yeah.
I was like, oh, fuck, here we go. Like, I didn't even, and it's my fault. What I shouldn't have, there was about, like, why didn't I ask the boundary? I could have asked that first to say, are you guys open to seeing this? And he was on the speakerphone with my stepmom. He's like, we just watched that podcast and we are so proud of you.
Oh,
I just got goosebumps.
Yeah. He was like, we're so proud of you. Like, how you showed up, the energy that you had, they were so engaged. They were hanging on every word. Just, you presented yourself so well. You presented the information so clearly. It didn't feel raunchy. Like, I can see why you're so passionate about this. I can see why you're doing what you're doing. You've got to keep going. Like, this is your thing. You found your thing, and I'm proud of you that you found your thing. Yeah. If there's any more like this that you want to share, go ahead and send them through. I was just like, I almost broke down and cried. I was like, man, like, my whole, I put so much into this, and I've been hiding it from my parents for so long. To get that from my family just was like, man, I'm gonna really give this my all. Getting that support from my family was like, okay, yeah, like, now, if you thought I was leaning in before, I'm going to do my best to make this thing work.
Oh my gosh. I was holding my breath the whole time. That was, I thank you for sharing that first and foremost. And I can relate to having kind of feeling a weight lifted off my shoulders when I told my family about my lifestyle. I told them about a year ago. I'm also from the South, from Georgia. Yeah. And they didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. And they were very upset. They were very mad. And then my mom sent me a picture of a pineapple pillow that she found at Home Goods. And she goes, do you want this? And from there on out, my dad doesn't ever want to talk about it. I'm still his little girl. He doesn't want to hear anything. They know I have a podcast. They know about that I'm poly and that I'm in the lifestyle. But that relief, I can feel that relief because I felt the same way when I got that picture.
You know, after that, I told all my sisters, you know, I told my mom, you know, as well. I told my mom last, you know, that's the person who really like, she can say anything and just like,
she knows.
Yeah. So everybody was like, cool.
So what would you say to like, cause like, this is where I'm like, I'm jealous. Cause like you've handled a conversation that I know I get to have at some point. Right. What would you, and it went the way that it went for you, and it went the way it went for you. Like there was some positivity at the end of that. For people that are not coming out as poly yet to their, like if they're listeners and they're on the podcast right now, what would you say to them to support them going into those conversations?
There's such a release for living your truth. Like whether people like it or not, you've got one life. That's it. You can, if you don't want people to know certain information, because this isn't like, I want to become a firefighter. You're letting people know about your sex life, right? So everybody doesn't need to know, right? But at the same time, just like, you know, people who come out that are gay, if it's important to you for them to know who you are, then absolutely live your truth. Now, if you're like, it doesn't matter if they know my sex life or not, then you don't need to tell them, right? If they find out, however they find out, then be ready to have the conversation. But I can't tell people enough to just show up as you. You know, when you put up these masks, dare I say, it's just, you get trapped. And now you're, you know, I told this person this thing and I told that person that, and you got to get these stories straight. And so now, especially with my families and all that, like anybody can know, you know, and if they laugh like, oh my God, I can't believe like you let other people hook up with your wife.
Right.
Next question.
Right.
Are you hung up on that? Because we're not.
Right.
Okay. And if you're hung up on it, like, it just lets me know where you're at.
Right. And if you're like, hey, I can never do that. I'm like, okay, cool. Good to know.
I don't like zucchini.
Yeah.
Right. And
yeah.
Yeah. Does this inspire you at all to want to talk to your family?
I mean, I don't think my family would take it nearly as well as some members of my family have been finding out. Like my little brothers found out, and like we were at a show yesterday and some people invited him to a cuddle puddle and he was like, what is a cuddle puddle? So my brother is discovering this stuff slowly over time. So there's some conversations like that where I think sit him down, you know, have a beverage and talk to him. I think with my parents, the reality is like they would not take it well.
I know.
And that's okay. And I think here's the thing. If I wasn't doing a podcast in this space or building a business in this space, I could just be a lawyer and do this on the side and no one would know. But I think about when we had Ken Phil's on the podcast and he said that some people go into porn ignorant, thinking that they can do this without their family finding out at some level. And he's like, there's just this ignorance and eventually they find out the hard way. And I think that, so for me, and this is weird saying it, I don't want to make a commitment on it because I don't think I want to have the conversation if I feel like it's going to be necessary.
I'll say this. You have a business here.
Yes.
Right? You got the podcast here, right? I know that you help other leaders
for sure
live their truth.
100%.
Right? I don't know how much of your non-monogamous lifestyle you need to talk about, right? But you can talk about your business, right? And, you know, the same boundary that I drew where it's like, do you want to go into each other's sex lives? Right? I'm sure they're like, absolutely not. They're not going to treat you guys differently. Oh, you know what? Don't sit them next to this other single couple at the, you know, dinner table.
I just think like, even at that point, if we explain the podcast from the opportunistic standpoint, here's why we're doing this. Here's why we're doing this for this community, or here's why I'm building this business. And here's like the potential outcome of this business. I think like business owner to business owner, Pops has got to understand that.
It's respectable. The fact that you built your own business from the ground, right? And the numbers that I threw at him, I was like, okay, so like 45% of Americans are curious about this space, right? Like another 30% have said they want to try something of this nature. So I'm just like, statistically, there's a market here. And I am capitalizing on that market prior to it being saturated.
Not to mention, like, we're building spaces for them to be integrity in the space. And we're talking about have the conversation, and you stand out based on your reputation in these spaces. And like, Discord's also safe. So man, I'm just like, happy you came on and said and talked about it in such a vulnerable way that, like, yes, you throw some of the best parties, but also the person behind it is living it. And so thanks for letting people see that side of you. For people that do want to follow you or connect with you in some way, how would they find you?
My Instagram is at Michael Hollice, but more importantly, the Play's Instagram is at theplay.la. In February, we just released our app. So we have the Play Network, and it's basically like a white gloved Reddit. They have all these different categories of, it's just, you got one of my favorites is like, it has nudes where it's like masculine, feminine, and then like pets.
Cute.
Throw your cat in there. Or, playmates in the wild where you just like, oh shit, me and Brian saw each other at the bar. Like,
right,
get a picture,
awesome.
like, yo, check it out.
That's awesome.
We're doing this thing tonight. So really, I'm super excited about the community that it's creating. It has a life of its own. I think there's like 200 people on now, and there are events happening every week. Whether it's like, come on over, we're going to hang out. And so it's taken off. And so the Play becomes a place where the community gathers. And I think people are tired of swiping.
Yeah.
100%.
And
For
that's
sure.
why you've created your app. And
For sure.
And I'm mine, to where like, we can stop this whole swiping.
Yeah, it's like in real life adventures, go have real life. Yeah. Without us even being there. Exactly. Man, thanks for being on again.
Thanks for
you
having
so
me.
much, Michael.
Yeah,
It was nice to get to know you on a deeper level.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Again, if you haven't already done it, be sure to like and subscribe so we can keep this content coming your way. And until we see you next time, try something or try someone new.